Hi everyone, I'm Chris. I'm here for a special Lesson 5 supplement video for the Contact Forces and Computer Science unit. Now, this is the first lesson for the computer science version of this where there are significant changes from the original unit. But don't be worried, there's nothing really scary from a teacher perspective in this. And honestly, the stuff we're previewing in this lesson will only make it easier for your students to understand the computer science pieces later on in this unit. But this is only a supplemental video, so make sure you go back and you watch the original video where Tommy's going to take you through everything in the original Lesson 5 for Contact Forces. Let's take a look at the lesson here. This is the agenda for the new version of Lesson 5. Now, the original version is only 2 days. This is 3 days, and that's because we're adding in parts 5, 6, and 7, which are brand new. Now, when we zoom into those pieces, Part 5 and Part 6, those are just a little added exploration with the spring scales. And we're going to figure out from those that basically when an object is motionless, the total of all the forces is 0 newtons. That the pull in one direction is equal to the pull in the other direction, or the push, or whatever. Part 7 is when you're making an input-output model of the spring scales. And basically we figure out that when you have an input of a force on the spring scales, it deforms the spring, makes it have a different length. And then the output is the number that you can read off the side of the spring scale. So let's dig into those 3 pieces. So in Part 5, you can see by the image right below me here that instead of using just 2 spring scales, we're going to use 3 spring scales. And this gives kids a little bit more practice and understanding in the idea of calculating that net force. However, you've got to understand that these spring scales are not perfect. So they'll rarely come out exactly to the same force on one side and on the other side. So in order to help that be true, you want to start off by making sure all the spring scales are zeroed. And then I'd encourage students to round to the nearest newton. So instead of writing down 2.9 newtons, they can write down 3 newtons because it's about 3 newtons. And these are not the most precise tools. If students come up with a number that's really off, I might go over and have them show it to me, maybe give it a little jiggle and see if that helps the readings be a little bit closer to what we know should be true. Finally, as students come up with a couple of rows and they start seeing the pattern that we want them to observe here, they're going to be able to make predictions. So I might ask them, hey, before you write down what C is, before you measure that, make a prediction. What do you think it's going to be? Because they should be able to add up the forces from scales A and B and figure out that C should be about that same total, just in the other direction. In Part 6, which is the first thing on day 2, you're starting to make sense of this. And so you're leading a conversation and you're looking for some broad ideas that the forces should add up to 0 newtons total. So like maybe 3 newtons that direction and 3 newtons the other direction. And you want to emphasize that this is really only true when the system is motionless. Obviously, you're not going to get into the whole idea around when the system's accelerating. That's a little more advanced than what we're teaching in this unit. But make sure that what you're saying is true for a system that's motionless. I definitely make sure that your ideas are added to your force interactions poster, so it's up on the wall for students to use as one of their science ideas. And after you basically make up this mathematical model, which is this relationship between the forces, the curriculum then has a slide with the example below me here, where you can see now there's 4 forces, and instead of pulling forces, they're pushing forces. But if you know the forces A, B, and C, students are going to be able to use math to figure out D, and this actually boosts their confidence a ton. This slide is so important because they know they can use this model to make predictions that they know will be accurate. Okay, Part 7 is the next piece on day 2, and this is where we're shifting gears a little bit into previewing some of the ideas that are going to come up in this computer science unit later on. You should emphasize the words input and output and add those to your word wall. Basically, the input of the spring scale is the force. Either they're pushing on the plunger or they're pulling on the spring scale. The changes inside the system, they'll see the spring deform to a new length. And when it does that, it moves the plunger to a number on the case, and we can read that as the output. It'll tell us how much force there is. I definitely link this to the beam investigation for lesson 4. So, for example, in that investigation, we saw that beams of different thicknesses deform different amounts. And the same thing with the spring scales. You have spring scales of different strengths, and the ones that can measure stronger forces have a thicker wire that makes up the spring, and that deforms less as we pull on it than a spring scale that uses a thinner wire. And they'll end up seeing that. In fact, if we take a look at the future lessons here, in lesson 10, we're going to dissect a digital scale, which effectively works the same way, even though it looks very different. The force applied by the object that you put on the scale deforms a metal beam inside instead of a spring. That metal beam is attached to a device called a flex sensor, which is just a fancy piece of equipment that can measure how much something bends. That flex sensor sends information to a microchip that eventually outputs a number on the scale's display. So in lesson 10, they dissect that. In lesson 11, we add another column to our input-output model, and students are going to be able to see that how it works kind of mirrors how the spring scale works. So it makes it a lot easier to understand, assuming that we've done a good job in lesson 5, which is why it's so critical in this lesson to focus on the input-output model and to make sure kids understand how it works. All right, let's take a look at materials here. For the word wall, the only major change here is we're adding the words input and output, and that's pretty important there. And finally, we're adding a poster here, the input-output model. It's really critical. When the kids get to the digital scales, they'll see that there's even beams of different thicknesses, and that mirrors the wires of different thicknesses inside the spring scales. This is going to make lessons 10 and 11 so much easier for your kids to understand, even if they're scared about the computer science pieces. So that's it for changes. I hope this is helpful for you. If you've taught the original unit, this is just an extension. It should be a piece of cake for you. Enjoy teaching this.